Well, meanwhile, US House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was grilled by journalist Jose Vega about the Nord Stream allegations, seeking to gloss over a direct question of the US involvement in the sabotage of the pipelines. The lawmaker was accused of putting American lives at risk.
I want you to say something about the bombing.
We're going to continue to stand with the Ukrainian people.
Do not do that. You will end us all
in
dead.
this war against
We
Vladimir
need
Putin
peace. We need talks. How about accountability?
propaganda,
not airheadedness.
And it's a battle between tyranny
How about
and
bridges,
freedom,
not bombs?
and democracy,
Okay. How about
truth, and
conversations,
freedom will
not
prevail.
cremation?
And the United States is going to help make sure that happens.
Not destruction.
Well, let's cross live to the man himself now, Jose Vega, the American journalist and activist who, in that video, grilled the congressman. Joining us live from New York. Many thanks for joining us this evening. It's good to see you. So I understand it's not the first time you've played hardball with a US politician over the Nord Stream blasts, nor the first time an official has tried to brush you off. Why do you think it's so difficult to get any comment on the revelations?
Well, I think they're trying to bury this story. And you're right, it's not my first time. I confronted my Congressman Richie Torres about a week before I did the Jeffries thing. And even before that, I was going after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Pompeo on the fact that we need to end this war. I mean, look, the Chinese have put out this 12-point plan that can completely end this war and also change geopolitics completely in a positive way. And the United States needs to respond to that. But the real reason they don't respond to it is because you have people like Victoria Nuland and even Joe Biden in the past who have expressed that they want to use Ukraine, that we changed the government of Ukraine. And what this is a proxy war. And Victoria Nuland unashamedly continues to push Ukraine, as they say, we're going to use Ukraine till every last Ukrainian. And if this is true, what Sy Hersh has revealed, which I'm very inclined to believe, this can end NATO. This can end geopolitical relations between the United States and Germany for a very, very long time. And that's why it cannot be discussed and they cannot comment on it.
We had this bombshell report come out by Seymour Hersh, massively respected journalist. Not many have voiced concerns since then, besides you and a few others. In your opinion, why aren't more people, more journalists especially, picking up the story and demanding answers?
Well, because they're part of this, as Ray McGovern, who testified at the UN Security Council with Jeffrey Sachs, puts it, the media industrial complex, because the media is just as complicit in this as the military industrial complex is complicit in this. They are working hand in hand. And I think, you can see that, when I do these confrontations to these politicians, I'm not really surprised anymore at the fact that the audience thinks I genuinely must be some Putin propagandist, as they call me, because these people really only do consume New York Times, CNN, mainstream media, and the blackout on this Hersh story is insane, and I've seen it. And so I no longer get upset at my neighbors when they get upset at me. In fact, I feel sad almost that they are being deprived of the truth. And I hope that when I intervene, even if the media isn't going to cover it, which they won't, they can at least look it up themselves.
At the time of the blasts, the Nord Stream 2 pipelines weren't even operational. In your opinion, what was the US so worried about that it allegedly went on to take such extreme measures?
Well, I was hearing Jeffrey Sachs just talk about this also. It was, it seemed as if the Ukrainians weren't going to actually get ground anymore. And it looks like they were losing. And so the United States had to do a desperate attempt to make sure that Germany would continue to support the Ukrainians and continue to walk hand in hand with the United States. I mean, you have to ask who benefits. It's the United States. The Russians aren't going to blow up their own gas pipeline, right? And this only ensures that the war continues to go on, because now the Germans have really no choice. Their hands are tied behind their back, right? They have to rely on the U.S. now. And this was only a grand geopolitical strategy to ensure that, and also as a reminder that we have a collar on the country of Germany, and it was the United States trying to make a statement saying we can do whatever we want, and we will make sure this war continues to go on by any means necessary.
In the video we just saw of you, you called for accountability. How likely is it that the guilty party will ever be officially identified and held accountable?
Well, that depends on the American population. I know people are often cynical about Americans, but I would like to remind my international friends that I'm an American too, as is Jeffrey Sachs and as is Ray McGovern, who is former CIA, who's testifying at the UN Security Council. There is a consciousness here, and there is a blackout. In France, I believe there were 3 million people marching against NATO. And here in the United States, we just had a rally called the Rage Against the War Machine rally. This happened on Sunday, February 19th. Americans do not want this war to go on. And I would like my international friends to know that we have efforts to make sure that, our government is held accountable for prolonging this war and for provoking this war. We are doing our best to make sure that people know that people like Victoria Nuland were responsible for the 2014 coup in Ukraine, which led directly to this conflict. And, we are exposing the fact that Joe Biden was shaking hands with people like Oleg Tianabak, who was the leader of the Svoboda political party in Ukraine, a very prominent neo-Nazi organization in Ukraine. So there is a growing tension and faction here in the United States, a non-violent, creatively directed action, and we will do our best to make sure that we hold our government accountable.
I'd like to come back to Seymour Hersh and his reputation because, Seymour Hersh has an impressive track record. He's won a Pulitzer Prize as well as a Sam Adams Award for Integrity. What's your take on those who are now suddenly critical of the accomplished journalist's latest discoveries?
Oh, it's no surprise to me. I mean, they were really dealt a surprise backhand on this because he is exactly the person who should have broken the story, and they were just completely caught blindsided. I don't think they knew this was going to come out, and now they're panicking. And the reason why they're smearing him is because they have to, right? It's the only way they can respond to this, because if they mention it even once, it already brings credibility, and it will pull Americans out of their head in the sand and say, "Whoa, wait a minute, did we actually do that?" I don't think Americans who do support Ukraine would support the United States blowing up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And in fact, I think if the media reported on it, you would have a lot of those people who support this war would take a step back and say, "Whoa, maybe I shouldn't support this anymore." And that's why they have to smear him, because if they legitimize him, it's over. NATO would be over. Geopolitical relationships would be redefined for the next century.
Many thanks for joining us on the programme today. It's really great to talk to you and get your take on things. We've been speaking to Jose Vega, American journalist and activist. Thanks.